You're listening to the New Artist Workshop.
That's an impounded Imperial ship. What's your call sign, pilot?
It's Rogue One.
Rogue One? There is no Rogue One.
Well, there is now.
Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. Now that's what I call a franchise. I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Viviana Metzger, and this is the show where Peter and I pick a film franchise and go through every single installment. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And to be clear, we're defining a franchise as a series of films with at least 4 entries. So Viviana, what are we talking about today?
Alright, so today we are talking about the 2016 film Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. And this is your one and only spoiler warning, so if you haven't watched the movie, go do that before listening to this episode.
Many people have made fun of the subtitle because it's like so corporate-y.
A Star Wars Story.
Yeah, so like people will like make parodies of like other movies or franchises that like don't need spin-offs, so it'll be like, I can't even, like Yoshi, a Mario story.
It's like duh, like it is.
Maybe it should just be called Star Wars Rogue One.
Yeah,
well, I guess the idea
I thought that was the name.
Well, I guess the idea was to make sure people weren't confused that it wasn't a mainline Star Wars film. Because don't forget, now going forward, no, it's not Episode 8.
Oh, that's right.
It's not part of the numbered mainline Star Wars films.
Oh, that's right.
Right? And notably...
Thinking of the other movie.
How do I... Listeners, I know you can't answer me, but I just got an Apple Watch for the first time, and I don't know how to turn the sound off. So if you hear dinging, that's what that is, and I probably should figure out how to turn the volume off. Oh well. Anyways, why don't you read the letterbox?
I'm sorry. I was thinking about Rey, because she can't...
A lot of people have made fun of Disney Star Wars, or just Star Wars in general, that it's just like the same kind of woman.
Because I wasn't...
Just like
British
brunettes.
Why are there so many British people? Anyways...
Well, actually, one of the reasons is because they get a big tax credit if they film in England and use like mostly British cast and crew and stuff. So I was reading a whole article.
But they don't
about
even like make them try to sound American.
Well, no, Star Wars has a rich history of British people. Even going back to the first one, Grand Moff Tarkin, Obi-Wan.
I know, but like 1 or 2 people. Now it's like everyone, except for like 1 or 2 people.
I don't know. Why don't you read
flip-flopped.
Why don't you read the blurb?
I'm going to read the letterbox blurb.
Blurb sounds like a Star Wars name. Like Blurb Gito or something.
Yeah. A rogue band of resistance fighters unite for a mission to steal the Death Star plans and bring a new hope to the galaxy.
A New Hope.
Not to be confused
with A New Hope. And the movie also really leans into this idea of hope is like, I guess, the theme of the movie, if there is one.
Is it?
Because they talk about like hope, like rebellions are built on hope, and at the end, when they hand deepfake Princess Leia the Death Star plans, and they're like, "What is it?" And she goes, "Hope."
Yeah.
I don't like this movie.
I'm
gonna say this right now. This is often of the 5 Disney Star Wars films we've gotten to date. We've got a lot of Disney Plus shows since, but basically episodes 7, 8, and 9. The Han Solo movie, and then this movie. People often say this is like the good one. Oh. It is not. In fact, it might be the worst of the 5.
It was so bad.
I thought it when it came out. Well, hold on, I don't want to. Let me take a step back.
But
I don't want to show my hand.
I just wanted to say because before watching it, you were expressing how much like you didn't like it. And I was like, trying to be my own person. And I was like, well, let's see. Like, it's probably not that bad or like, whatever. And then like 5 minutes into the movie, I'm like, wait, it gets worse? like, why is it like this? It's so bad. Yeah, so yeah, even within like the first like 5 minutes. But then it just keeps going. And then also, I guess we'll talk about it later, but the the story structuring. How I thought they had wrapped up, all of their poorly told stories, but then there was still an hour left.
Like when they were about to go to Gareth to go get the plans, like, because that feels like it's like the shift to Act 3, like we're like in the last third, if not the last quarter of the movie. It's like halfway through. The movie is structured so unevenly. It's
and it does weird stuff. Like what was the whole situation with what's his name?
Reese Ahmed.
Reese. Like, wasn't he supposed to have his like mind wiped?
He was supposed to go insane
by like the weird
Cthulhu creature,
like the octopus thingy, but he didn't. I don't know.
Let's put a pin in that. We'll talk about that in a second. So here's
anyway. So I was just saying that I also personally did not like it. So
that made me very happy.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just I was trying to be my own person and not be influenced, right?
But I said it'll be interesting to see what you think. I think it's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Movie. And you were like, oh, it can't be that bad. Anyway, so here's some info. So it was directed by Gareth Edwards, nominally directed by Gareth Edwards, whose main claim to fame before this was the 2014 American Godzilla reboot. With not Millie Bobby Brown. That was the sequel. I think Bryan Cranston was in it.
Not the one with Broderick.
No, that's from the 90s.
Okay.
This is like from 2014.
Okay.
It was written nominally by Chris Weitz, who wrote Ants with a Z, and the live action Cinderella movie with what's her name, Lily James.
Oh, the newer one or
the newer one.
The newer one. Okay.
The one from at the time it was new, but now.
Well, I was just making sure because it just says Cinderella, so I didn't know if it was for the older one.
No. And then also credited is Tony Gilroy, who we'll talk about. So Tony Gilroy was behind the writing for films like basically the Jason Bourne movies, which are pretty well. At least the first three are pretty well liked.
Yeah, people like the Bournes.
Produced once again by Kathleen Kennedy, who's the president of Lucasfilm, who people say she made Star Wars woke, even though she didn't.
And also, why would it be bad if she...
Exactly.
What?
And also credited is Allison, Shearmur, and Simon Emanuel. Unfortunately, I don't know who they are. I apologize. It was distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It was released again in December of 2016. That's kind of become the new Star Wars month now, starting with The Force Awakens now. And if anything, The Force Awakens, which I don't think we really talked about, kind of really made December like a blockbuster part of the box office season. Before that, it wasn't really.
They're really going in the wrong direction. They're really missing out.
On May the 4th.
On May.
Well, anyway. It had a budget of $233 million and did gross $1.058 billion. So, by all metrics, it was a pretty big
timing-wise, winter break and everything, it's great.
It's especially the last one, because the last one was much more of like a family film compared to this one. But this one obviously still did well, but like it ended up working out for them.
Yeah.
For them. It was
for
pretty,
sure.
right?
For sure.
So again, in terms of previous experience with the movie, so this was your first time, but...
Wait, was it my... Wait, what?
We did not watch this.
Wait, why does this exist? Why is it not another mainline story?
Well,
I don't understand.
I'll tell ye.
Okay.
There's like a couple different answers to that question. And it's not like it's either or, like it's all of these. So one reason is just because they wanted to tell this story and it wouldn't be like, what would it be, episode 3.9? Like what, like it wouldn't fit with the scope of the quote unquote numbered entries.
Well, I know, but then don't do that.
But it's a spin-off. Like we watched. Why isn't the Ewok Adventure episode 3? Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
I don't know.
It's just a spin-off.
I don't know. I guess because they've started the live action reboot, and so.
Well, the answer is who owns Star Wars at this point? Disney.
Disney.
Disney by the mid 2010s had had a very successful run of movies called the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to churn out 1 movie a year, and then eventually 2 movies, and then to the point where we were getting like 3 or 4 a year.
Of course.
What they basically were already going to do this, but they were reinforced by the mammoth success of The Force Awakens, Episode 7, which came out the year before this. This idea of like, we're going to make a Star Wars movie every year. Mm-hmm. They're not all going to be the mainline ones.
So,
it's basically just a corporate move of like, more Star Wars is better. People love this shit. They will come to see it.
So basically, they didn't have the time to write the story to make a main timeline one.
No, not even the story. It's just a story they wanted to tell. They thought that would be an interesting movie idea, but that wouldn't fit within the numbered titles. You're kind of focusing on the wrong part of this.
Why not after the trilogy?
Because it's about stealing the Death Star plans that leads up to Episode 4.
It's just uneven. That's all.
But it's not uneven. It's not a number. It's a spin-off. You had no problem with any of the other
No, I
spin-offs
know. I'm just thinking because, like, the 3 films, right? And then other stuff. And then the 3 films, and then other stuff. Or, I guess, no.
No, but that's not true.
And then...
That's not true. The original trilogy, we had the holiday special.
In between.
Yes, in between 2 of the main ones.
Well,
Clone Wars cartoon was in between.
Okay.
This is not unprecedented. It is precedent. It is very much precedent. Okay. What is unprecedented is that these are big budget theatrical spin-offs. Mm-hmm. That they are given the same marketing push or seeming value as the numbered titles. That is a difference. That this is not like a spin-off in the sense that it's kind of like this random thing that you kind of have to like be a Star Wars fan to know about. Like, this movie was not as big, but it was still big.
Yeah.
Like, it was still...
So soon after, yeah.
It was still, it was still very much targeted to be like one of the bigger movies of the year. I think it ended up becoming... I wonder what the highest grossing movie of that year was. It may have been this movie. I don't remember.
Do you know the Marvels that came out?
Oh, you know what? It may have been like Civil War, Captain America: Civil War, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let's go to Box Office Mojo.
But right now. You know what? Honestly, I think it is my first time watching it because, like,
oh, that's right. It is objectively.
I thought that I had because I like remember like certain shots, but that could have just been from the trailer. So. But I like literally don't remember any of this. I'm not familiar with any of this, so I knew about it, but I didn't know like any of the details about it. So yes, I will confidently say that this is my first time watching it, and also confidently that it will be my last.
The last time you watched it.
Have you watched this before?
Yeah. Well, the answer is yes, but my is because I can't remember how many times I've seen it. I think this would have been the 3rd time I've seen it.
Oh, why?
Well, that's not true.
If you don't like it, why did you?
Because I saw it when it first came out.
Yeah. Like
opening day.
Yeah.
With my friends unlike The Force Awakens, which we talked about, where it was coming out like the day I was traveling back home from New York to Rhode Island.
And Harvey texted you.
Right, my friend, we saw it. This movie, we were all still in the semester, or we just hadn't left yet. So me and my friends were able to go see it together. And I remember even going to see it. Even then, why does my Apple Watch keep? How do I be this quiet?
Stop shouting and continue your story.
I remember we all talked about it being disappointing because it seemed like, again, in concept it's a really interesting idea. It was being billed as like genre defying in the sense of like it's not like your normal Star Wars film. Like Star Wars films are more like fantasy, whereas this is almost like a war movie. And a lot of the advertising materials made it seem like it was going to be like a fresh new take on Star Wars, and I know I was at least very excited to see what it was going to be, and remember being disappointed. Not hating it. Thought it was, okay, that was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. And then I saw it again like only a week later. I went to go see it with Tony. The guy who got me into Star Wars, like when I went home for Christmas break.
That's why, okay.
So it's our 2nd time. And then the 3rd time was a year later in preparation for episode 8 coming out, me and my roommate Brian watched all of the Star Wars movies in chronological order.
Okay.
Like, not in release order. So we watched, like, 1, 2, Clone Wars, 3.
Yeah.
This, episode 4, whatever, and kind of all the way up to episode 7, and then going into episode 8.
Okay.
And then earlier this week. And I think I first thought it was dog shit when I watched it that time with Brian. In the lead up to episode 8.
Not the first time?
No, I did the first time. I just said 5 seconds ago. I thought it was fine when I first saw it.
I know, but why you're saying, like, first disappointed with Brian?
I'm saying that when I realized it was dog shit.
Oh, more than just okay.
Because the first one I thought it was still a good movie, but disappointing. I started to think about it more.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then, like, as time went on, I was like, wow, it's amazing how little of it has stuck with me. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's kind of more mediocre. And then me and Brian watched it, and we both kind of agreed. Or I think I was a lot more harsh, but I was like, this is like a bad movie. Mm-hmm. It's not just mediocre. It's not just forgettable. It's certainly not one of the best Star Wars movies, as people were trying to say. Yeah. In fact, it is one of the worst Star Wars movies.
This is like, this is just like a sacrifice. It's like a sacrificial lamb, or like the. It's just a product of. Like,
we need to release something in 2016 if we're gonna do one a year.
It's just a product of a time where Disney just was pushing out cool looking films, so it looks cool. You know, they're.
It's a little gray and flat, but
but like on the beach or whatever, things change. Well, yeah, it is kind of dark.
Interestingly, I don't know if this was shot on film or digital. I would assume digital, because The Force Awakens looks way better than this movie.
Yeah. Well, I thought some stuff looked okay, but yeah, for the most part, I do remember like
there's some good design stuff, but it looks good in terms of like the designs, but not necessarily good in terms of like cinematography.
Just like the environments.
And it's weird because the guy who was the cinematographer went on to do the Batman and the Dune movies, which are some of like the best modern looking movies.
Well, those are graded kind of dark.
I suppose. Yes.
But
anyway,
yeah, it was basically like dark graded, and then they get to the beach and everything is like out of like blown out,
almost like blinding.
Yeah, and it's like overexposure. I forgot why I was saying this, but
I don't remember either.
Dog shit reasons.
Huh?
Dog shit reasons.
Dog shit reasons why it's dog shit.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into it. But my primary issue, and we'll talk about this with the background, is that it's a Frankenstein of a movie. That it's very clearly stitched together, all these disparate parts.
Yeah.
And here's let me get a little film theory technical here.
I don't even think you need to see it.
No, but I'm gonna make a point.
It's like that bad.
So the idea, like, what makes cinema cinema? Like, what's the secret sauce? And I don't think there's one answer. But Martin Scorsese has talked about the idea of the phantom frame. And he's not the first person to think of this, but I think he might be the first person who's articulated it this way. That the power of cinema is the editing. It's the only part of film that's unique to film.
Bro.
Right? And what I mean by that is not necessarily strong editing choices, but just literally the idea of, because cinematography is, in a sense, is just photography.
Yeah.
But editing is the thing unique to cinema, because you take a clip of something and then when you cut to the next thing, it's like the thing Alfred Hitchcock talked about, where it's like if you have like an old man looking at something and then you cut to what he's looking at.
Yeah.
And it's like a little baby. And he cuts back to him and he smiles. You think, oh, he's like a gentlemanly kind of old man. But if you replace the baby with like a woman sunbathing in a bathing suit, and he smiles, you have a completely different impression of the guy.
Yes, of course.
Scorsese would call that suggestion the phantom frame. That it's this third other idea by combining these. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. You combine these two shots, and a third invisible frame appears in your mind. It's some kind of understanding, right?
Yeah.
My point with this is that you can take, in the editing room, you can take a bunch of disparate stuff and make it feel like a cohesive thing. Mm-hmm. This movie does not do that. Mm-hmm. It feels like you see the seams of this Frankenstein movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I definitely see the seams. And then also, I felt like, especially in the beginning, I was like getting fucking whiplash. Like, the cuts were so short for like no reason.
It was such
and
choppy
so
editing,
I was like, oh, what? You know? So I was like, this is crazy. Like, why is it doing this? You know? Like, did they not get enough footage? Like, what is the situation here? It's not really that.
Or they got too much footage and they want to use it all. Because then it's like, well, then we wasted it's like you can like start calculating like how much money was wasted because we filmed this shot and we didn't even use it.
Well, that unfortunately is part of any creative process. Trust me, making creative assets and then not using them.
Exactly.
So it hurts, but you gotta kill your darlings sometimes. But this
one, I think they killed their darlings and then tried to like resurrect them.
And their neighbors or something.
Killed their neighbors.
I don't know. It was so bad.
Before we started recording,
and I was so confused.
Looked really pissed off, and I was like, "Well, what's the problem?" We were just eating lunch, and I was like, "Well, what's the problem? Like, why are you all pissed off?" And she's like, "We're gonna have to talk about this movie." I was like, all right. It's a bad movie, but it's not like it should ruin your day.
No, it's just annoying. I have to think about it again.
Well, why don't we do some background info?
Remember different parts of it.
Let's.
I have to relive it to talk about it.
That's true. Why don't we?
Yes, do the background development.
Let me set the table.
Yes.
Let me set the kitchen table. So in terms of the development of this, actually, before I do, I'll just say this part is that. Well, this leads into, this is a segue, that it's a shame that I don't like this movie because this could have been great.
Yeah.
It could have been great. It just wasn't in execution.
Resources, people.
Just the concept is cool. Like,
yeah.
Like, because that's something we didn't.
Perspective, yeah.
Especially since they had wiped the canon clean. Mm-hmm. It's like, now how the rebels got the plans is an open question. Mm-hmm. Before it had been depicted in books and games and stuff, but now it's like an open question. So in terms of the development, it goes all the way back to 2003, if you can believe it. So during the production of episode 3 in Sydney, John Knoll, who was the visual effects supervisor for all 3 prequels, pitched an episode for the unproduced series Star Wars Underworld. So this was a TV show that George Lucas was going to make after the prequels. That was a little ahead of its time in terms of like the budget and like what you could do on TV, like. Because this is pre-Game of Thrones. This is having big budget TV shows. But he had this idea of doing like almost like a show in between 3 and 4, episodes 3 and 4 of the movies, to kind of show like the seedy underbelly of the galaxy.
Okay.
And I guess
interesting.
This visual effects supervisor, John Knoll, pitched an idea for an episode of the show. It's like the rebels stealing the Death Star plans. At the time, he had written a short treatment called Destroyer of Worlds. After the Disney acquisition, he felt as though he had to pitch it again or forever wonder, quote, what might have happened if I had or hadn't.
He's taken a little inspiration from Oppie.
I think that's the idea.
Well, I am the Destroyer of Worlds.
Well, I mean, the Death Star is like the atomic bomb. And I think George Lucas meant for that allegory intentionally when he makes it in the 70s.
They do the whole planet. So.
That's what I'm saying. And they kind of try to paint Mads Mikkelsen's character in this as kind of like an Oppenheimer figure of like someone who kind of regrets the thing he's made.
Yeah.
They kind of like play with that idea. I
thought this was like such an interesting like perspective to play on. Because we've always been on the other side, right? But now it's like these are the people we're not supposed to like, but they also are people and like have their own stories. And
the people we do like are also kind of morally ambiguous. Like Cassian Andor like kills the guy in the beginning, like his buddy.
They're questionable, but then also like it's like realizing that not everyone in the Empire is the Empire, right? And so it's like, oh, like we hate this guy, right? He like killed a lot of people or made the capabilities to, but like shit, he really regrets it. He's like, you know, trying to stop the, you know, so I was like, wow, this is really interesting, kind of
like interesting ideas,
you know. Yeah. It's like, wow, this is cool, you know, from the other side, perspective from the other side. But you know, alas, then it happened.
Gareth Edwards, the director, stated the style of the film would be similar to that of a war film, stating, quote, "It's the reality of war. Good guys are bad guys are good. It's complicated." Like you were just saying.
Well, this is not shot like a war movie. But...
No, that's another thing. It
but whatever.
Really like a war movie.
But, okay.
It's complicated, layered, a very rich scenario in which to set a movie. Unquote. Assuming Disney would not allow a dark ending, Edwards had the main characters survive in the original version of the script. However, the producers opted for a more tragic ending and never filmed the original version. In terms of the filming, so this is where things got dicey. So in May 2016, reports emerged the film would undergo 5 weeks of reshoots.
Oh, wow.
With Tony Gilroy writing additional scenes, as well as acting as a second unit director under Edwards. So they filmed it, and I guess they made some kind of rough cut to show Disney, and Disney like freaked out.
And second unit, so it wasn't even like just like the main scenes.
It was like also like action stuff. Like
that's really weird.
And to be fair, big budget movies have reshoots all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean... That's the thing. It's the amount of time that... I remember at the time...
When was the gap? What was the gap?
What do you mean the gap? Between what?
From when they shot it to...
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. But that's kind of irrelevant, but what's really relevant is the fact that that's a long reshoot period. And I remember at the time, that's like what commentators were saying. Is that like
days,
movies like this... always have reshoots. In fact, they'll usually put it into the budget, planned reshoot. But it's like it was the amount of reshoots that really raised a lot of alarms.
Because you'll do like 12-hour days, right? So it's like 12-hour days, probably
5 days a week,
5-6 days a week, and for 5 weeks.
And also
that's so much.
May 2016. That's when reports emerged that they would do it. Like the movie's coming out in 7 months.
Oh, wow.
Like, the movie's... This is May.
Isn't that so weird?
So they probably didn't start this till June. And the movie comes out in December.
I guess it makes sense, like, you know, like if you were to do a project for school and then have it done by, like, you know, you have it done by the date or whatever. But, like, it just seems... I think because of the size and the complexity of, like, making a multi-million-dollar, like, film is so... like not having it done, but like saying, hey, it's gonna be in theaters nationwide in 6 months. I'm like how is that even possible? Like
and what makes it hard is because it's so big, there's a lot of inertia. So it's hard to slow it down. Like if you're making like a small indie film, like it's not really obtrusive to like, you know what, maybe let's take half a day and like rework this scene. This, it's way too... Like
I'm just like, well,
it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars a day.
Yeah, and then it's not just you know done. Then there's like distribution to the different theaters and all this.
Well,
stuff.
It's easier now because
I'm like, dude, like how is it?
It's a lot easier to transport the films because now it's basically like a thumb drive, essentially.
Because other people do that. I've heard of other movies doing that. Like
I think the original movie, like
in 2 months, it's not done, you know, but it'll be done in 2 months. Like, will it? Shouldn't it be done already?
I think one of the movies we talked about, they were literally doing it like the hours before the world premiere. Like they were just like finishing some stuff up, like, and then they like physically like. It's also again easier to transport this stuff because it's not giant film canisters.
Still, yeah. Well, back in the day, yeah.
You know, whereas now it's essentially either a thumb drive or like digital. Like they basically download it from the cloud or something, like the movie theaters and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you have this massive reshoot. And nominally, Gareth Edwards is still directing. because
you said it 3 times.
because nominally, on paper, Gareth Edwards was the director. And Tony Gilroy was just helping write some additional scenes and doing some second unit stuff. But from reports, Tony Gilroy became the ghost director of the film. And with input from Edwards, Gilroy oversaw the edit and additional photography of the film, which tackled several issues, including the ending. But in 2023, Edwards disputed the reports that he was sidelined during the reshoots, saying that he remained heavily involved during the reshoots and worked with Gilroy. And I believe, and we'll talk about it, I think, in the trivia. So a trailer came out before this switch happened. Mm-hmm. I believe I read a report that not a single piece of footage from that first trailer
is in the movie.
Is in the finished movie. There are similar versions of scenes, but none of the actual shots in the movie.
That's
the trailer.
Ridiculous.
And I remember it got a lot of attention. Like, people were like, is this like false advertising, technically?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, it's showing, in the trailer, there was a moment where, at the end when she's like she's like on the top of like the signal tower.
Oh, yes. And
there's like that long bridge.
Yeah.
There was a shot in the trailer where she's walking across, like limping across the bridge, and then like a TIE fighter like rises up to like attack her. Yeah. That's nowhere in the movie.
Well, she did hobble across.
No, but the TIE fighter, it's implying there's going to be a confrontation with a TIE fighter. I'm saying
they took that part out.
Not a single piece of footage from that first trailer showed up in the actual movie.
That's wild.
So the movie already had like an aura of scandal's the wrong word, but of intrigue, like chaos.
Yes.
But then once the movie came out, there was another kind of scandal, in terms of the effects. So Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, produced the film's visual effects. ILM used CGI and digitally altered archive footage to insert Peter Cushing's likeness, aka Tarkin, over the body of actor Guy Henry. Lucasfilm secured permission from the late actor's estate to include him in the film. The team searched through archival footage of Cushing footage in order to find suitable reference material, and Henry provided the motion capture and voice work. A digital model of Cushing was mapped over Henry's performance like a digital body mask. Cushing's mannerisms, including his manner of speaking, were studied by the creative team and applied to the digital Tarkin model. Cushing's estate was heavily involved with the creation and had input right down to, quote, small, subtle adjustments, end quote. A similar process was used in the portrayal of Princess Leia. Carrie Fisher's appearance as Leia in the first film was superimposed over the face of Norwegian actress Ingvild Delia, and archival audio of Fisher saying Hope was used to voice the character. That's the only line she says. And that was a big surprise. That wasn't Tarkin was not in the trailer. And I remember that being a big surprise from the audience, because at first you just see the back of Tarkin's head and you see his face in the reflection. And at first you kind of go, okay, he's kind of almost be like the teachers in Charlie Brown. Whereas like, we're going to hear him maybe for a little bit, it's just here to add some texture. And then he turns around.
There's the new guy.
What?
Because there's the new guy.
There's the new guy. But then he turns around and it's a photorealistic like deep fake of Peter Cushing. And the audience, I think, was more impressed than liked it, if that makes sense. Because a lot has... It's more of a topic now than it was back in 2016. The idea of like digital likenesses and the ethics of that. If it's like, especially if it's a deceased person, even if the estate signs off on it, like. But this was kind of the first of its kind. The closest thing we had gone before this was there was I forget what it was a commercial for, but it was like a commercial. Maybe like for a chocolate brand, like a European chocolate brand, and he used like a deep fake of Audrey Hepburn, like a young Audrey Hepburn, in like 2014, so like a couple years before this. And there was a lot of kerfuffle, and then like I think there was someone with like James Dean or something. So
it wasn't the first, but it was up there.
It was the first like major use in like a feature film.
Because the Irishman. That was
later.
Way later, yeah. So.
And that was of the actors themselves. It wasn't, they weren't
that's true.
dressed up as a different actor.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And then also you have the music. So Michael Giacchino, who's a very prolific composer, he's done a lot of stuff for Disney and Marvel. He only had 4.5 weeks to compose the music for the film, beginning almost immediately after finishing scoring Doctor Strange. I think he was brought on because it was someone else who was gonna do it, and like they didn't like it, so they brought him in at like the last second. In addition to composing original themes, Giacchino incorporated some of John Williams' themes from previous films into the score. The score also sucks. It sounds like a YouTube like parody of Star Wars. Like
you did say that,
especially like the opening theme. Like,
well, I was glad it didn't have the exploding kind of sound. So
the giant fanfare at the beginning.
That was kind, even though I was expecting
that
it.
was kind.
But it was kind to my ears.
They're so kind. That multi-million-dollar.
It was kind
so
that they
kind.
didn't put a very loud and unsettling, just like ah! Bam! Just like dun, 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 dun.
Oh my.
I'm like, wow.
Okay. So what did we think of this movie? Did you like this movie?
No. This movie. I thought it was going somewhere. And then it didn't, and it went somewhere else. And I was like, strange, but okay.
Yeah.
And then it did it again. And I was like, strange, but okay. And that just kept happening. And like, I literally said, after multiple scenes, I'm like, that's strange, but okay. Because it was, I don't know. It was just all weird.
I'm going to elaborate what you're trying to say.
The
but I'll
story,
let you keep going.
the acting, it was just weird.
Well, so here's the issue with it.
It's just unnatural.
It kind of feels like a film like AI generated.
Yes.
And here's the reason.
I don't know why they're acting like that.
Well, here's the issue. Again, it's clearly hacked up.
Yeah.
It's clearly a film that was chopped into a million pieces. It's like when you make a collage and you're like cutting up all the magazine pieces
Of
and then you're putting them right. So, and that's going to be a result of the fact that you had such extensive reshoots. But also, and this is unsubstantiated, but I remember reading when this came out that I think this may have even been before the reshoots. Maybe this is why the first cut wasn't very good, supposedly. They would have like 3 or 4 different versions of scenes because they weren't sure how they wanted. No, I'm not talking about like they're doing the same scene but different performances. Like I'm saying like different dialogue.
Oh.
I'm saying like.
I thought you meant different takes.
No, I mean like different versions of the scene. Because they didn't know what direction they wanted to go. So they wanted to leave their options open for later.
And this, ladies and gentlemen and people, is why we do not start production until we have a finished script.
Well, that was the issue with The Force Awakens and Michael Arndt. Michael Arndt, who did Little Miss Sunshine, did Toy Story 3, was like, I need like 2 or 3 more years to like really get this script in a good place. And Disney was like, nope, we're releasing in 2 years. So we're gonna find someone else to finish this for you.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like this corporate machine that, you know, there is a value in deadline because artists can like be wishy-washy and then like just take and they never finish the thing. So deadlines are useful, but
is that like unused shots? What is deadline?
A deadline, like when you have a deadline for like an essay or a paper.
I thought you were saying like it.
Like when it's due. Like
Okay.
Like it has to be done by this day.
I thought it was like. I thought you were using a film term, like it was like
a deadline.
Like it was just a deadline, like it was just a line that wasn't used by the,
No, like having a deadline is useful because it forces you.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, I got
Limitation breeds creativity.
Yes.
So it's good to have a deadline.
Yes.
But at the script stage, deadline, like you should already have a release date for the movie.
Yeah.
You could have deadlines for new drafts.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't, to your point, like you should maybe wait until you really have a film you're ready to shoot.
Well, yeah, because then you're just doing random
But here's
stuff.
the thing. Okay, in a perfect world, if actors were just robots, right? That's fine because then you could figure it out in the editing room and piece it together.
Yeah.
But as an actor, just because you're filming it out of order doesn't mean that you don't know the order of the story. For most films, like, unless it's like a super secretive movie, but especially if you're like the main character, like you have the script, you know what the beginning, middle, and end is.
Yeah.
And that's crucial. Any actor will tell you, you need to know where you're going in order to, you as the actor need to know where your character's going, so you know how to play this scene. Like, you need to know that info.
Like,
but if you don't know what has happened to your character before this, and where the movie is taking your character going forward, how do you play any of these scenes?
Yeah.
So what do? You just give like the most boilerplate, generic version of the dialogue, because then you need to be able. It needs to be able to be slotted in wherever. You can't make strong character choices.
That's not how you make a movie.
Because, well, it is how you make a movie, because that's how they made it. It's, it is. Well, there's no rule book, but it's not ideal. That's not the proper
way. Oh my goodness.
Or at least its result. It's
because think about it. Like if this were the case for Batman, like we would have never gotten. I mean, he went too far, but we would have never gotten the Joker, performance.
Oh, like Heath Ledger?
Oh, Heath Ledger, yeah. I mean, like, he definitely went a little too far, but, like,
No, but he didn't. He was nice.
No,
he wasn't an
No, I was talking about, like the book.
That's not why he died. He overdosed on like, sleeping medication.
No, I know. I was just talking about having, like, a Joker diary.
Oh, well,
I just think that's
weird.
weird. Anyways, but...
Let him have a Joker because of woke. You want him to be the woker, I bet.
AIDS is not funny. But anyways, so, yeah, I like, we couldn't... Like, it's, like, not computing how it's, like, that could have never happened because he was able to study and create and, like, fully bake a character. Whereas, like, these guys are just like, okay, now do it like this. Okay, now do it like this.
Like SNL?
And it's like
have you watched SNL before?
I hate SNL, yeah.
Oh, you do? Really? I mean, there's some good sketches here and there, but on the whole, it's kind of like whatever. But... if you've ever watched it, like,
it's so
you can
awkward.
tell. Well, because they threw it together in a week,
yeah.
You can usually see if they're reading cue cards off screen, because they're always like looking in a weird. Like, that's how this movie kind of feels, where it's like they're being like they walked onto set and like 5 minutes before they're shooting, they're like, okay, so your name is Jyn Erso. Here is your backstory. Action. Here are the lines. Action. Yeah. And it's like you don't have that room.
Like, what were they? Why were they hired? Like, was there not...
Because these are all great actors.
Was there not...
Every single one of them is a great actor. I've seen them really great in other stuff.
I know. I'm trying to think. I'm like, how did you even hire these people if you didn't know what kind of person you needed them to be? So, like, did you... Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, did you do it based off of, like, a scene that is no longer in the movie or something? Like someone does like a big dramatic speech or something, and it's just like that whole situation is just like never used. Yeah. So it's like, well, okay, like,
and character development is one thing, but the characters feel inconsistent scene to scene.
Yeah.
And the biggest casualty of this is Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones, where. I really have no sense of who she is as a character.
Yeah.
Like I guess the idea is like she's like hardened by being abandoned, so she doesn't emote and like is just like kind of out for herself. And then she sees this transmission and becomes like this giant puddle of emotion. Which on paper, okay, makes sense, but they don't execute it. It doesn't. Her character never seems like a guarded person holding back emotion. She just seems like an emotionless person.
I don't think we even get close enough to even know any emotions.
Exactly. But then later, she's like at the rebel base and she makes like the inspiring speech. Like she's like, rebellions are built on hope. And it's like, what has changed?
That was really weird. Like this whole thing just like made me uncomfortable.
I don't know if uncomfortable.
I don't know what, but just like the whole movie just made me feel very uncomfortable for different reasons at different times. But
that's a first. I've never heard.
But that was like one of them because for a main character, we didn't know her at all.
Like I know things about her, but I don't really know her. Like capital KNOW.
Exactly, because you know what? They're in the first scene. the dad's trying to, you know, like protect the mom and her, or her especially, so that they're not like taken into like a labor camp or something, they say, or like taken for prisoner. But then we see her fast forward 20 years later, she's literally chained up and like
yeah.
How did, like, okay, well, that didn't work. Like, how did that happen? Like, was that on her own? Like, did, you know, well, we hear later that she's done some stuff, but like, I don't know. It was just weird, you know? And then it was just like a kind of like a disaffected person who was like, you know, oh, I don't vote, you know, I don't really care about politics, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, like, in the next scene, they're, like, on the streets, like, marching, like, with the signs and stuff. It's like, where did this come from? Like, you literally told them that you did not give a shit and that you would be okay with the Republic or the Empire.
Like, it makes no difference.
Like, 2 minutes ago. You were, like, literally just, like, Nazis are okay. Just don't pay attention to it. And now you're like,
she says,
fight the Nazis!
Because I think, who is it? It's Forrest Whitaker's character, Saw Gerrera. That's his name, Saw Gerrera.
Yeah.
He's, to your point, he says the thing about, like, are you really okay with, like, the Imperial flag flying over every city in the galaxy? He's like, it's not a problem if you don't look up.
Yeah.
Which, like, okay, that's an interesting idea. But it's just, they just never quite, because the movie is never able to develop any, like, thematic momentum because it's all stitched together. So, like, every scene feels like we're thematically starting from scratch. So, like, every scene is just, like, relitigating the same idea, like,
well, it seems
over
strange because
over.
you would think she would have some type of opinion being, you know, a prisoner or whatever. I don't know why she would. Oh, the first time was because her dad left, right? He went AWOL. But why would they arrest her and make her a prisoner?
No, and you're confusing a bunch of stuff.
No,
she escapes when she's a little kid. She's in jail for just some random.
I know.
They don't know that she's.
But I'm saying her parents said run away.
Yeah.
So that you do not go to prison. So that we.
Not prison, but the idea would be that they're gonna force Galen Erso to work on the Death Star. So if they have his family, they can use that as like leverage over.
Okay.
I don't think they were gonna send this little girl to prison.
Just like, I don't know, just have her as a.
Throw her in the clink.
Throw her in a cave and forget about her. I don't know.
Throw her in a cave, and that's basically what her parents do. They just say, go in this little,
in that little hole.
The little hidden fake rock that's secretly a little hole.
Oh, that was so weird.
Interestingly about this movie, this has nothing to do with what we were talking about.
I thought she was gonna grow up with Saw, but no.
I think that was the initial thing they were gonna do.
I know. And then she's like, now you left me. I'm like, what?
That happened.
I thought he saved you from the hole. I'm confused.
And then his reasoning is, because I knew who you were, but my crew didn't. And if they find out you're the daughter of the guy who's working on the Death Star, they'll fucking kill you.
Don't tell them.
He's like, I simply wouldn't tell them. If
what?
I was Saw Gerrera.
I don't think they would just know by looking at her, so maybe just don't say anything and then she'd be fine, no?
So this is unrelated to what we're talking about, but since we're on the topic of Saw Gerrera.
Who am I? I don't know.
Interestingly, Saw Gerrera is not an original character to this film. Saw Gerrera's actually showed up first in the CGI Clone Wars show. In the Clone Wars era, as like a young political radical on his planet, like in terms of like the methods he would use to fight the Empire.
Interesting.
Or the Separatists, or
was
whoever.
he the same then too? Like, was he
all fucked up and
like part robot and stuff?
No, that comes later, I think.
Okay.
But
that's interesting.
It's interesting that like for this big budget, like they're starting to pull like secondary characters, like because we had seen primary characters show up in secondary material.
Yeah.
This is like the first time like a character from a secondary piece of media is showing up now in one of these major movies.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. It just sucks that he's just so poorly written. Like, they have this whole thing of, like, because he's a radical, so, like, when Riz Ahmed's character, who's, like, a defector from the Empire, comes to, like, give them information, he, like, doesn't believe him, so he's like, we're gonna use this squid monster to mentally rape you.
Yeah.
And it's like
so
needlessly hostile. Like, I don't understand, like, what your methods are. Because I don't even understand, like... Because what would make it interesting is that if he does really bad things, but for a good reason, I really don't even understand what he's looking to accomplish by sicking the evil octopus monster onto Riz Ahmed. I don't understand...
Because that was
even from his POV, what the point of that even was.
Because the whole point is that he, like, is an extremist and goes too far, right? Like, even though he's a rebel.
And we never really learn or hear or see any of these radical methods. He's just kind of mean, and then he has the squid mentally rape Riz Ahmed.
Well, you know what? That's true because, that is weird, because they don't even interact with him, like, in the city, where one would go to be politically radical, right?
But of course that's where someone's gonna go if they can be politically radical.
But no, he's just, like, in his little cave.
Yeah. And
then they, like, meet completely, like, different other people. Like,
it would be interesting if he was, like...
Well, I guess his little crew...
Well, they don't do anything.
But that's like a weird, like, secondhand thing.
Yeah, no, I want to know.
You have to see him there.
Or at least give the order. Like it'd be interesting if there was, like, this morally ambiguous situation of, like, non-military Imperial officers that they're going to, like, blow up their office.
Yeah.
And it's like, or not even that, but, like, maybe, like, they're going to do something and there's going to be a lot of civilian casualties. And, like, is it okay? Is it do the ends justify the means, so to speak? It helps bring down the empire. Like, that's morally ambiguous and maybe taking things too far. Or, he doesn't do anything in this movie.
Or otherwise, the factions don't make sense. Like, why, if you're gonna do the same things,
Because again, that's because as we've learned, I really enjoyed the political machinations in the Star Wars universe. So, like, I want to know about, like, okay, so there's a bunch of groups that want to bring down the Empire, but it would make sense that they don't all have the same approach and also don't necessarily all share the same vision for what comes after. Like, okay, that's interesting. Uneasy bedfellows working together towards a common... Like, that's interesting. But we never really get a sense of, like, any of the factions, what they stand for, like...
Well, it was also... I thought it was also really weird because... there was, like, such, like, mystery or, like, I don't know, like, I guess mystery. Like, there was such mystery about him as a character, like, as a person with...
Saw Gerrera?
Yeah. They're like, Saw Gerrera, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's, like, a tall tale. But then we actually get to him, and he's just, like, a silly old man who's, like, half a robot. And I'm like... This is the guy you guys have been, like...
hyping up, yeah.
I'm like, why have you been hyping him up for the past, like, 20 minutes when he's literally not doing anything? The only thing we see him do is be nice, besides, telling the squid to be weird, but...
And he's like, it will find your truths, but you might go insane.
But then he doesn't!
Forrest Whitaker gives the most unhinged, like, Razzie... remember we talked about the Razzies?
Yes.
This is like a Razzies-worthy performance.
Yeah.
Because it's so... We talk about baseball. It's the biggest swing possible. But he missed the ball by, like, 3 seconds. Like, the ball already went past the plate and then he swung. Like, it is just the most...
He's not a bad actor at all.
No! No one in this movie is a bad actor. Everybody in this movie...
It's just a really weird...
Everybody in this movie I have seen... do good work. Like, one of my favorite actors is Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Director Krennic in this, like the main villain guy. And he might be the best part of this movie because he seems to be the character that probably was the most unchanged from version to version. Right? Like, it's not like they completely reconceptualized his character, but also he's just like delightfully, like, evilly sassy. He's like deliciously evil, as I like to say.
I honestly wanted more with him because I thought that whole dynamic with him and Tarkin, and then eventually
because there's like
Darth,
political,
and eventually Darth himself.
That's interesting stuff.
I was like, oh shit! Like, why is Jin the main character? Let's make it this guy.
So I was gonna wait to bring this up, but I can't stop myself because we keep. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Don't stop me. Don't stop me. Don't stop me. Anyway, like we keep like getting close to it, and then I'm trying to back away from it.
Okay. Just say it.
All of the great potential here is capitalized on in Andor. So what Andor is so this came out in 2016. When Disney Plus is like announced, I think like in 2018 or something, and then it launches in late 2019. They announce, a big part of it is we're gonna have Star Wars shows, which everyone's really excited for. And obviously the big one that's coming the soonest is Mandalorian.
Yes.
But they also announced we're doing a prequel series about Cassian Andor, aka Diego Luna, in this movie.
Who is who? Is he just like another? Is he just like another guy. Han?
Kinda, sure. He's he's just another rebel. He's not a smuggler. He's just.
No, just who is this man?
He's just a random character. But we're gonna make a prequel series about him. I remember when they said that, I went, okay, if that who knows if it'll actually ever get made? And if it does, I don't give a shit because I don't like this movie. Like I don't really care about learning about like this character who like is fine, but right. And it was gonna be the showrunner was gonna be Tony Gilroy, who came in at the last minute to salvage this movie, supposedly, right? Andor eventually comes out. I think it's like 2023 or 2022.
Like
the first season.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Really?
Incredible. Easily the best Disney Plus original show.
Really?
And is a shame it's not a movie and we won't be able to watch it and talk about it. Because it capitalizes on the political machinations, because it's not just about Andor, because it starts off he's not even part of the rebellion yet. Like he kind of was when he was a kid.
I was 6 years old.
So it kind of ends up being a retcon, so I guess now what he really means is just like, I've been like pushing against the Empire, but not like actually in the rebellion necessarily. So he's kind of like a rogue guy who kind of gets wrapped up into the rebellion by mistake. He's a rogue one.
He's a rogue one.
But it also deals with the political machinations of people like Mon Mothma, who's in the Senate. She's technically part of the establishment, but is working secretly. And then you also have insight into like imperial officers and like the political inter-office backstabbing and trying to rise through the ranks. Everything that this movie suggests, like everything, like all the potential of this movie is realized in Andor. Particularly the morally gray aspect of the rebellion and just armed resistance. Against an occupying force. It doesn't hold back. Like it feels like it could have been on HBO in terms of like maybe not the violence, but in terms of the thematic. Like you ever see sometimes on like it'll say PG, like it'll say like thematically. It'll be like thematic intensity or something.
Yeah,
like
something like
it's
that.
not the movie that's scary, but it's like wrestling with ideas that maybe like a 6-year-old shouldn't be watching. Andor does that, and one of the most famous parts of Andor, which I'm going to spoil, is there. So Stellan Skarsgård is one of the characters. He's a new character, and he's basically the go-between between Mon Mothma and random little rebel cells. Because at this point, it's not even an organized alliance. It's like 5 or 6 people on this planet, 3 people over here. They're it's like a terrorist group, like the little cells, right? And he's not going into battle. His cover, he's like an antique salesman, like an antique. He owns like an antique store,
So he
like
can travel
in Coruscant.
Oh, okay.
It's like a high-end antique store.
So
like
I'm going to find stuff on other worlds.
and he like plays this character of like this very like lugubrious kind of like,
but also like.
but he like wears like a wig, like of like flow. He's like very like extroverted and almost kind of like I don't know what the word would be, but then like behind closed doors he's like helping orchestrate like essentially acts of terrorism, right? And there's this scene where like someone calls him out on the fact, like, you know, like you make these calls and people die. Like you make these decisions and people die. Like we're sacrificed. Like what are you sacrificing? And he's like, basically my soul. Like I'm doing things, like I'm getting my hands dirty so the next generation can live in peace. Like I'm compromising my, and he's like, I basically toil for a sunset I'll never see. Right? It's this wonderful speech that, divorced from Star Wars, would just be like a really interesting exploration of, like, again, the moral ambiguity of armed resistance against an oppressive force. That's incredible. This movie has nothing like that. And Saw Gerrera shows up at one point in it. In the show, briefly. Okay. But his character's so much better. He doesn't necessarily get a lot to do, but he has a conversation with the Stellan Skarsgård character, and they find out this information. It's kind of like, remember that movie, The Imitation Game, with Benedict Cumberbatch?
Of course.
Remember at one point, they figure out, like, they break the code?
Yes.
But they can't always use the information that they have, like, if they know an attack is about to happen.
Yeah.
They can't always, like, warn the people, because then, like, the Nazis would catch on, like, oh, our code's been broken. Yeah. Something similar happens in this. And so basically Stellan Skarsgård has to decide, like, to let this guy that he knows walk into a trap. So it's like wrestling with the, like, this movie wishes. It wishes it could be that interesting.
I was not even, I didn't even hold that as a aspiration or a standard, you know. I was just like, if we could just get through this. we don't need to be complicated with the politics. Just do the movie. Just do the movie.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because I mean, I already decided it was dog shit before Andor was even came out or was even announced. Right? So the issue is that the movie itself is poorly constructed, but then Andor makes you realize how good it could have been. Yeah. So it makes Rogue One worse, because you're just like, oh man, like if you had just been a little more willing to, like,
I don't know how this keeps happening.
Go there, because Disney's a corporate machine.
But there's like good, but like the thing is, like, there's constantly good material, and we're like, oh, that's a really interesting idea, or like, oh, that's a missed opportunity. It's like, how does this keep happening? Like, does no one see it? Like,
the answer is,
I don't understand.
The answer is conservatism, not politically conservative, but just being way too cautious. You make fun of me for this baseball analogy, but in order to hit the ball, you have to take the risk of swinging. And they don't want to do that. Too much money is on the line to risk. They'd rather risk not swinging and maybe get 4 balls and then they get to walk.
Of just like just plain Jane kind of thing. Just
middle of the road, obvious. Whereas Andor feels like a much bigger swing.
Also, speaking of obvious, this whole semi like love relationship is really strange. It also makes me uncomfortable.
It's like very subliminal, but like it's obviously there.
Because I don't think about it at all, and then they're like about to kiss, and then
they're just very close.
And I'm like, oh, but then they don't kiss, and then I'm like, wait, what?
I forget what. I don't know if it was related to that, but there was some part of the movie. I cannot remember what it was.
And then they die embracing in a nuclear explosion.
Do. Which again, I don't mind in theory.
But I'm just like, how did we get here? Like, are you just doing that because he's here? Like,
I don't know. I forget where it was in the movie, but there was one scene, and I remember I turned to you and went, see, like, it feels like 2 minutes was cut. Like, there was, like, more to this scene.
Yes.
But we, like, just jumped.
Yes.
But it's like, we didn't do, like, it's like doing your, like, you didn't show your work on your math
Was that the thing about the blaster?
I have no idea. I think it was later. It really doesn't matter what scene. Okay. Because I think you could have applied to many scenes. It probably wasn't just the one I noticed. Another weird nitpick that I really like. This might be a nitpick, but it's something that really pisses me off with this movie.
What?
Is the central, not the premise, because the premise would be about the rebels stealing the Death Star plans, but like the central conceit is that the guy who designed the Death Star didn't want to do it and intentionally built in a flaw.
Yes, you've talked about this before, yeah.
I really hate that.
Yes.
Because I thought what made the original film work is that it's the idea of like the giant, big, technologically advanced empire in their hubris, not paying attention to the little details. And that's how
that's not
a small group of freedom fighters are able to.
Well, they don't. That's how they don't find out about it, I suppose.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that they don't pay attention to those details, so they like let a design flaw, or whether they think they're so powerful, no one would ever be able to exploit such a flaw.
Yeah.
Right. So this kind of retcons that, and it's like, oh, it's okay because we had a guy on the inside. Like, no, oftentimes there's no guy on the inside in oppressive regimes. Like, it's just.
Also, I wanted more of him. Like
especially now that Oppenheimer is like a movie.
Yeah, I'm like, who's?
Like, I would rather just watch like the Galen Erso Oppenheimer movie.
Yeah, because
you know what I mean? Or like the book.
I'm like, who is this guy? Okay, why did he just all of a sudden grow a conscience? Like, what happened? You know, like.
Well, the idea is that he's basically been being forced at gunpoint to do it the entire time.
No, I know, but I'm saying beforehand when he was there willingly and he was like, you know, helping, and then he was like, hey, maybe I shouldn't help what are they? The Empire or the Republic?
The Empire.
The Empire? Okay. The Empire, and then he like he goes MIA, right? Like, okay, but like what? Like why did that happen? Like, how did, you know, he finally took the step to do so as opposed to just like, you know, complaining about your job, you know, just like, you know, or like doing like a little inside insurgents or whatever, or helping the rebellion like get info, or I don't know. Anything else? How did this man get here?
Yeah, because the movie's not concerned about any of that.
It's not concerned about anything.
And that's the other thing, is that it's just an empty movie. Because I think they were just hoping, well, if we can just like film some cool scenes and kind of put it, some scenes we filmed 6 months ago, and then we'll shoot some new stuff and we'll put it all together, and maybe like a movie will come out the other side. And it just, it lacks a premise is only a premise. Like, you have to, as a director and the writer, I suppose, you have to find, okay, like, but what's like what's your thematic ambition here? Like, what idea are you trying to explore? And that's something that's not in the log. Like, you have the log line down, but like, what is it all for? And I don't know if they ever really figured that out, or if they did it and they never implemented it in such a way where it would really permeate the film in any meaningful way.
I mean, because there's no one to latch onto. There is no.
Like, I don't like any of these characters.
Like, I thought it was gonna be Jin, obviously, right? And then that was very distant, and then it's, you know, went off and did other things, and then it kind of made it seem like it was about Krennic. Is that his name?
Krennic, yeah.
Krennic?
Director Krennic.
And then it seemed,
evil guy.
Yeah, it seemed more like it was gonna lean into more like Krennic, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, because he seems like a cool, you know, character. Not a cool dude, but a cool character.
Non-diegetically cool.
Yeah, but then it doesn't really do that either, or I guess it does, but like in the way that you said of like missing 2 minutes, right? So like, I don't know, just like his whole situation with Tarkin, and then going to Mustafar to see Darth Vader. I'm just like, I don't know, I just feel like there's like some type of like organizational, like emotional something that should be there to link these two things besides just Darth being involved. And also, you know what? That's a fucking retcon too. Ha ha ha. Because in this case, they're talking like Darth is like the guy, and that Tarkin is like under him, and he's like the middleman between Krennic and Darth. And in the movie, it's actually in the other movie, it's actually Darth is really just like a kind of like a soldier, like a bodyguard for Tarkin. Like, he didn't have like a special house tech thing. Also, why is he on Mustafar? Just because he's Darth Vader? That doesn't make any sense.
Because he's evil.
Why would he stay there? Unless he just had no way off.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
well, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Should this movie have included Darth Vader? because his inclusion, I believe, was part of the reshoots. In that, admittedly in a vacuum, admittedly awesome scene of him like slicing through all the rebels at the very end. Mm-hmm. While admittedly cool, that was also a product of the reshoots. Mm. I think maybe they were like, we need to put more like Star Wars-y stuff in. Mm-hmm. Like, is this movie better or worse for having Darth Vader, this inclusion of this character? No, on the whole, my answer is it's for the worse. Because I think on a narrative level, like, he really has no place in this story.
Yeah, exactly.
But I like that last scene just because it's like a good, like, I just like that scene.
It's cool how it like blends in.
Because we've never seen Darth Vader with post-original trilogy fight choreography. Because up until this point, we've only ever seen like the stilted, like, Darth Vader fight choreography, and then of course we get the prequels, but he's not visually Darth Vader yet, even if he's like, my name is now Darth Vader, it's just Anakin.
Oh yeah.
Like, so it's kind of cool to see Darth Vader like at his peak. But it's just like incongruous.
I thought it had the same kind of awkward situation as what's the other one called?
The Force Awakens?
The Force Awakens. Oh my god. I was like Rogue One. Wait, this one's Rogue One.
This one's Rogue.
Oh my god.
Rogue Zero.
I was thinking it has like the same weird issue balance type of situation.
It's like almost too reverent for
where it's like, okay, you have nothing original, or, you know, like the iconography or whatever, characters, and then all of a sudden now Darth Vader is involved. Oh, and Princess Leia. Like, that just seems weird, you know, because it's like the whole thing was being introduced to new people. So
yeah,
you know, like in the last one, it was like why is Han and Chewie here? Like what? Like what? Like,
very much shoehorned.
It just seems like very random, you know. And that's how they ended up doing the retcon with the high organizational hierarchy, because I wasn't even thinking about Darth Vader at all, you know.
Exactly.
It was
like did you even know he was going to be in this movie?
No.
Exactly. Like,
I didn't think he was going to be in this movie. I don't know. It was so weird. I was like, oh, like, what?
And another kind of,
I don't know.
Excuse me. Another retcon. Well, it's not quite a retcon, but it's something that doesn't. A big thing people said about this movie when it came out was like, oh, it's like so great. Like, after I finished it, I went home and immediately watched the original movie because it goes right into it.
Yes.
I fucking hate this because
you literally said that you liked that scene.
No.
You like?
No, I like him mowing down the rebels. I don't like this idea that it's like you watch this and you're supposed to go watch the original movie.
Oh no, not that, but just the idea of it blending into the.
Well, that's theoretically cool, but it creates a contradiction because when you watch the original movie in 1977, it opens with Leia's little ship, the Tantive 4, is what it's called.
Yes.
And then getting chased. Basically, it's a high speed. It's like a highway chase, like the OJ car chase.
Yeah.
Right. So with the Star Destroyer, and then when they board Leia's ship, they're basically like, "Oh, don't act so surprised. I want to know where the plans are that the rebels sent you." And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on a diplomatic mission." And he's like, "You are like." There's like this like back and forth, like she's trying to claim ignorance about it. But this movie suggests that her ship was at the battle, very visible to Darth Vader and the Empire, and then they board her ship, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, obviously she's lying in both scenarios, but like, that's a really dumb lie. Like, you were literally at this battle. So I feel like in 1977, the suggestion was like, they were separate from the rebels who stole the plans.
I thought they had like found them,
or they were given to them at some other point in time.
No, I mean like Darth found them, and it's like you know.
Exactly. Whereas this is like, it's very clearly that ship was there.
He's like he just like zoomed across like 30 feet.
Yeah. So like, they go into hyperspace or whatever, and then they chase him. But so I don't know. It's just really
which
strange.
like is fine.
Like it's obviously part of the rebels. So
which is like it's fine. The retconning and stuff is fine. Like I don't want you listening to think that like it's just being so nitpicky, like fans just being so nitpicky about like all the little details or whatever. It's at least for me, the situation is the only reason I am paying attention to or talking about these little things are because they're being served to me on a silver platter, and there's no main story or there's nothing else to talk or think about.
It's what I said before. Plot hose.
Plot hose.
If you dance on the pole, then I'll make you a plot hole. Plot holes don't matter unless they do. And what I mean by that is, like, if I'm thinking about plot holes and, like, narrative inconsistencies, it means that your story and characters have not thoroughly engrossed me. You know
I literally don't care about anyone in this.
You know?
I did kind of like Krennic and what's his Galen
or sorry.
Because I thought that was interesting.
And there are good parts of this, like I like Donnie Yen's character, the blind, essentially kung fu guy. I like Scarif. I like that last planet. Yeah. It's the first time of getting like a tropical beach resort planet, basically.
It looked like a Sandals beach resort.
It did look like it.
Well, it also had that issue of the thing that like Guardians of the Galaxy does, where it's like planet hopping a lot.
I think it's like they go between 4 different planets in the first 10 minutes.
And I'm like, wait, I don't even know who the characters are.
It's the first Star Wars film to have on-screen planet names.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, we're on a new planet with new characters. I don't know what the story is. Like what is happening? I was like legitimately confused for like the first part of the movie. I was like, like I'm trying to keep up here, but I don't know who any of these people are.
And that's one of the big issues with the Disney Star Wars era is like obviously George Lucas wasn't sitting down and designing every planet, ship, and alien. But remember, like I told you, especially for the prequels, like they would make a bunch and he would go through every single one and be like, okay, that one, not that one, right? And they would get really interesting. None of the things in the Disney Star Wars movies are like very memorable. Like you talk about going through all these planets, but they're all very generic and unmemorable. Whereas like the planets in the prequels, like for better or for worse, like you remember them. Like they're very weird.
I cannot tell you what planet Andor was on.
But even forget the names of them, just like describe them. Like okay, it's like a generic urbanish.
It was like in an alley.
Yeah, like it's just nondescript kind of.
Whereas, like, you know, like, Tatooine is Tatooine because it's a giant-ass fucking desert.
Because, again, what is the aim of the Disney Star Wars films? Be as much like the originals as possible. And the originals were very nondescript. Desert. Snow. Forest. Whereas the prequels had all these weird alien biomes and, like, architecture and geographies and whatever.
Okay, that's fine. If you want to do that. But, like, you know, don't just care about the visuals. Because, you know, I mean, people obviously go in and watch this movie and like it, but...
So I'm saying it's the best Star Wars film ever,
which is very strange.
Which is preposterous.
But, you know, I really think it just had, like, the Marvel type of thing going on, of where it looks really cool, but there's not really a story.
There's not that much.
And, like, I don't feel any different after watching the movie.
Like nothing, I haven't changed. Like nothing about my soul has been quenched.
Yeah, I've learned nothing. I don't care about
myself,
anyone, or you know.
Yeah. It also has a thing of like kind of like the K2SO character, the droid.
Yeah.
Feels like he's plucked from a Marvel movie.
Yes. Oh my god. The fucking dialogue.
Which I remember, even when I didn't like the movie, I remember like, oh, he's kind of good. This movie he was really grating. Maybe because I'm older now and more grumpy. But he was just really grating and annoying.
No, it was just like Han turned up to like 11, but like in a
It's like a sassy autistic droid.
well, I guess not Han. It would be like C-3PO, but like turned up to 11, and so it was just like using that, and I'm like, okay, but this is like a little inside. The rest of the script is not that good enough. It makes this insufferable. I don't.
Like, that's like a good little cherry on top, but if it's just a bowl of cherries, like or a cherry on a piece of shit, like, if anything, the cherry's gonna piss me off. Like, why are you putting this cherry on this piece of shit?
Or like the whole thing with that just reminded me of the whole thing with Andor and like him trying to kill Galen and then him not, and like that whole thing, but it was like only a tense situation for like a minute, and then
why does he not do it? Because he thinks it's wrong, or because he like wants to sleep with Jin? Like, any of those ideas are interesting, but like, explore them. Like, I don't think the movie ever tells us why. Like, she's like, you were gonna kill him. He's like, but did I?
Yeah.
Like, but we never understand why he does it. Like, is it because he decides, oh, he's actually not a bad guy?
But well, then it was also
that's an easy moral question. A more interesting moral question would be, should I kill this guy who is bad? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
well, I guess it was kind of like he saw him get down to his knees, so it's like, oh, maybe
he's not
in
control. He's being coerced in a way.
Yeah, like he's not super in control. He's not the one behind it necessarily.
As Carrie Fisher said in her funny elderly Carrie Fisher way in the last movie, she's like, no, it was Snoke. Sorry.
But then, something also that I was really trying to convince myself was the whole situation afterwards where Galen actually dies, because like Jin is like so moved and affected, and like obviously you would be torn up if your father died right in front of you, but she thought this man was dead for 20 years. So like, I don't know. I guess there wasn't enough reconnection for me to like her to warrant her being like having to be pulled away by Andor. The
movie kind of just goes like from like, oh well, this is a movie, so this would happen at this part.
Like, be sad, okay, but
it hasn't really earned any of these emotional moments.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was just a little strange, just how emotional it was.
I don't buy any of the relationships in this film. Her and her father, her and Andor, and the other
shit. Her mom got shot. Oh, she did.
She dead.
Oh, she is dead.
Also a generic brunette British woman.
Yes.
Something we talked about.
Galen's a fool.
He is a fool. Something we talked about at the beginning of this episode.
I am Spartacus.
That.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, because there was like a situation where they were trying to find the rat, right? But and Galen was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna say anything," and he was like,
Krennic.
I said Craston.
Pull up a cast list.
Krennic was like, I'm gonna kill these guys, and he was like, no, it's me. And I was like, fool.
You're supposed to let them say it.
So foolish. You know he's gonna kill them anyways. And then what does he do? He kills them. He kills them anyways. Anyways, I just thought that was foolish for someone who's so apparently smart.
I don't think you can have an I am Spartacus moment unless like they're in on it as well.
No,
they have no idea what is even going on. So
no, I just mean that like no one's being pointed at. Like it's like, it could be anyone. But it just seems like a strange thing to happen if Galen like so cleverly like has been doing all these things. I don't know. I guess you could do that and still be smart. I don't know. Anyways, at the beginning of this movie, what?
At the beginning of this episode, we talked about the pacing of the movie. Mm-hmm. And how the movie is so unevenly paced. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is not a rule, but typical story structure. You have 3 acts. acts, but the 3 acts are not equal in length. The first act is roughly maybe 25%, the first 25% of the movie. That includes, like, the status quo, once upon a time everything was a certain way until, and that's, like, the inciting incident.
Yeah.
And the shift from Act 1 to Act 2 is, like, the main character or characters deciding, like, okay, we are going to do something about the problem. Right? So in this movie, it would be, like, her agreeing to work with the rebels and then going off on the adventure. Right? So Act 2 is really about 50% of the movie. From, like, the 25% mark to the 75% mark. And that's what a screenwriting teacher of mine called the promise of the premise. Like, that's, like, when people think of your movie, like, that's, like, the stuff that, like, that the premise promises.
Yeah.
That's, like, where that's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
The shift from Act 2 to 3, because usually in the middle, it's not exactly in the middle, but there's the midpoint, where it seems like all hope is lost.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to be able to, you know, do what they're going to do. And then the shift from Act 2 to 3 is basically the characters kind of recommitting to their cause to solve the problem. And it sets the stage for the climax. So, like, think about it. So, like, in episode 4, like, the shift to Act 3 is, like, them going off to fight the Death Star. Like, it's like, okay, the climax is starting to start.
Yeah.
We're setting the stage. So, of course, it ebbs and flows, but roughly, the shift to Act 3 should be anywhere from 2/3 to 75% of the way through the movie. Structurally, this film shift to Act 3 is about halfway through the movie. And the second half is basically is just Act 3. Yeah. Is this big battle, which admittedly, at least the space portion is actually I actually kind of like. The effects are good. It's exciting, you know, space fight. And the second half is much better. Much is maybe a strong word because the bar is very low, but like the quality of everything feels better in the second half than the first. The first feels the most Frankenstein, whereas the second half, it's like, because it's just this one act, this one battle. Yeah. It has the benefit of feeling a tad more cohesive.
Just a tad.
Right? And this is where the film, it becomes, quote unquote, a war film. But it doesn't really look or act, the mechanics of the film aren't really, like, it's not a very good war film.
Also, why? Because it's Star Wars? Like why?
Well, I guess the idea, I mean, I'm not against the idea of having a more war film, Star Wars film, but it also speaks to this need for
such a
beloved franchises to age up with its audience, because like the fans like want something that speaks to them now, but it's like, maybe it's okay if it doesn't speak to you now because it was made for children. Like, it's okay. You can have something more, like, I say this in the same breath that I'm also saying something like Andor is incredible. My point is the pathological need to make something more mature, as if that validates it and makes you feel okay liking it as a 38-year-old man. It's like, no, like the key is that, like it, even if it's very family friendly at 38. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I just find it weird because they've always done action and fighting and stuff.
It's not any more warlike than any of the other ones.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I'm like, what is this constant bid for, like, a war movie? What does that mean?
At this point, we already had a Star Wars property that dealt with war. It was called the Clone Wars TV show. It ran for 6 fucking seasons.
Well, I'm just confused. I'm just like...
So it's like, why do you need this movie?
Just like mushed shot, like shots of just like people mushed together fighting. Like what is a war movie? How? I don't understand. Like what the specificity is.
I think more like realistic battles or something, or more like.
Isn't it always been like that? It didn't seem any different than any other.
I don't know. Do you want to hear some trivia?
Sure.
Okay. George Lucas was reported to have enjoyed the film more than The Force Awakens. Upon hearing this, Edwards said, quote, "I can die happy now," end quote. Oh. That's kind of nice. But also, I don't know if George Lucas is a good judge of movies.
He could be lying.
Gareth Edwards and his creative team discovered some old film canisters while rummaging around the Lucasfilm warehouses. When he asked what they were, an employee said they were old Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope footage. The discovery led to the inclusion of unused Episode 4 material featuring Red Leader and Gold Leader in this movie. So some of the shots in the space battle, they were able to like upscale them so they looked like more modern. It was unused footage from like actors from the 70s.
Oh, that's cool.
That's kind of cool. If you're looking for it, you can kind of tell. Mm-hmm. But if you're not looking for it,
I couldn't tell.
You wouldn't notice at all, exactly. Darth Vader's appearance in this film is meticulously patterned after his look in the original film. While Vader's chest plate is uncovered in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, his costume initially had his Sith robes draped over his shield, as well as red lenses in the eye holes of the mask. Considering this film takes place mere days before the original film, the costume designers recreated Vader's look down to the last detail.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the red.
That was something from the original film, yeah. Whereas the more classic Darth Vader look really crystallizes in The Empire Strikes Back. Because now they had a bigger budget, so it didn't look like... Because like in the original one, it looks like a dude who just has some plastic that they put over him. Like it's like moving around. It doesn't look like it's like a mechanical thing that's set in place.
Yeah.
Like it looks like this thing that's like not attached to anything. It just looks like you have like a Halloween mask.
He's got his egg.
That's right, his little pressure chamber. The Rebel base at Yavin 4, which is like the Rebel base planet, the one, the Guatemala.
Yeah.
Features several full-sized cardboard cutouts of X-Wings and Y-Wing fighters, using the same technique of filling out the hangar as in the original film. So I guess kind of a callback to that.
So they just paint, like, they just make it look like there's ships in there. That's cool.
That's kind of funny. Though, like, that's cool, but also, like, you don't need to do that. So I feel like they were just like, well, that's how they did in the original one. We're going to be authentic. They did it because they had no money.
Well, I guess there.
If George Lucas had the money, he wouldn't have done that. Like
there are easier ways to do it.
We talked about this a little bit. Jin's father, Galen, is modeled after J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. Both men share the same guilt factor of becoming an agent of death for building a weapon of mass destruction. Gareth Edwards instructed the art department to only use elements that would have been available in 1977 to get the movie to look contemporary to the first film. The flight control animations, for example, had to be kept as simple as possible, resisting the urge to make them, quote, too flashy.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I like the idea because at least it keeps things consistent, and that was a big complaint with the prequels, where it's like, it feels like technology regressed somehow in the Star Wars universe. Like they have different technology that like they don't use in the original trilogy. That seems like obvious, and the answer is just because they hadn't thought of it or didn't have the budget to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind it, but I'm also like, okay, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into that. How about now you do that, but for the script? You know, to confer the intended look of the ground battles, director Gareth Edwards and the design team simply took old pictures taken during World War II in Vietnam, replaced army helmets with rebel head covers, and added X-Wings into the shots. They also drew storyboards inspired by photos from Middle Eastern conflict zones. Representatives of the studio were immediately taken by the imagery and encouraged him to proceed with the idea. You look confused.
Oh, I was just going back through and reading it because I don't.
They basically, to give the idea of the look that it's more like real war like, they just took photos from World War II and Vietnam to make concept art and like CGI instead of like a U.S. Army helmet, it was like a rebel helmet or something.
Okay.
I think they thought they were making like the Saving Private Ryan of Star Wars.
But like
it's not anywhere. Because the thing about Saving Private Ryan is that it's so visceral, especially the cinematography, because it's shot on film. It's so textured, like you feel every drop of blood and rain, and bullet, and this is so glossy and like it's like the Disneyland version of war.
It's like I'm sorry. I know they tried really hard, and there was like a whole vision and everything. But I mean, do you need to reference like old and new like actual war photo? Like, don't you? Like, I don't know. It just seems like a little strange. That's all.
You've used the word strange several times.
I think this movie is very strange.
Strange, Doctor Strange.
I'm like strange, but okay, you know.
Mads Mikkelsen is the guy from Doctor Strange who has that whole thing. He's the villain in Doctor Strange. But he's Galen Erso in this movie.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Cassian mentions the Guardians of the Wills when speaking with Jyn on Jeddah before the attack on the hover tank. Quote, the Star Wars from the Journal of the Wills, end quote, was the original working title of George Lucas's story. The Wills were wise beings who narrated the Star Wars saga to their pupils, explaining it as having happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. This flashback format was ultimately deemed unnecessary and abandoned. There was a consensus among fans that the Wills are the species that Yoda belonged to, but this has never been officially confirmed. That's the thing, we don't know Yoda's species. Mm-hmm. So I guess they kind of like, we're going to use like canon that wasn't even canon. Like scrapped material we're going to now bring back.
Yeah.
From like original drafts of the first movie.
Strange.
Gareth Edwards said that he came up with the planet name Scarif after ordering a coffee in a Starbucks shop, a chain that is known for writing down the names of their customers on the cups. The barista simply misspelled Gareth's name as Scarif. That does happen a lot at Starbucks.
Yeah.
When Jyn and Cassian are walking through the crowded streets of Jeddah, they bump into two guys where one of the men says, "Hey, you just watch yourself. These are Dr. Evison and Ponda Baba," who's the walrus man,
Ponda Baba,
who are seen in the cantina in Star Wars Episode 4, where Obi-Wan cuts off Baba's arms after a barroom brawl. The line is lifted directly from that scene. So a lot of people, when they saw this movie, were like, that's very fan service-y.
You said, yeah.
He literally says the same line he says in A New Hope. Out. And also it creates a weird issue. It's like, wait, so this whole city got blown up. So they just happened to leave just in time so they could be in Episode 4? It just seems a little convenient. I'm fucking tired. This movie has drained me. When Vader is first seen, he is in a Bacta tank like the one that Luke uses in The Empire Strikes Back after being wounded by the Wampa. This is a nod to Vader's history in the extended universe, where it's known that he repeatedly spends extended periods of time in a Bacta tank in hopes that it will repair the damage done to his lungs from the lava on Mustafar, as he despises having to rely on the mask to breathe. He's just like in pain all the time.
He was like in a little bath.
That's why he had the little pressurized...
But I thought it was just an egg, because in the other ones it was just an egg, but in this one it's like a water tank.
I think his egg is for when he's on the ships, because he can't bring his bathtub.
Oh, but then his water tank is there.
I guess. The real answer is they hadn't thought of it yet. And then they came up with it later. No copy existed of the Death Star blueprint data, as seen on screen near the end of A New Hope during the pilot briefing. Remember we talked about in the first movie when the rebels are sitting down like looking over the plans?
Yeah.
There's like a little like computer generated animation of the Death Star, like using like lines and stuff. And I think we talked about that was like the first CGI animated thing in a movie ever. Technically computer generated animation. There was no existing copy of that animation. So it required the visual effects team to redraw the entire animation frame by frame for this movie.
Oh.
That's frustrating. Okay, so this is kind of what we talked about before. Several scenes from the trailers that didn't make it into the finished movie were the result of so-called, quote-unquote, indie hours. During those indie hours, the crew spontaneously shot scenes to see what results they would get, regardless if they would make it into the finished film or not. In one instance, when Felicity Jones was walking through the tunnel of the Imperial Archive set to go to her next scene, a crew member switched the lights on. Another crew member called her, and she instinctively turned around. Director Gareth Edwards was so taken by that spontaneous composition that he asked the crew to let the cameras roll. He initially asked for 10 seconds, but they ended up spending half an hour filming about 17 takes.
What?
When Edwards had to assemble the trailer, he included one take of that particular scene. Even though that he knew that it wouldn't make it into the finished film, he was still proud of it. And that was a big point of contention, how I talked about people were kind of mad.
Indie hours, not deadlines. Indie
exactly.
hours.
We talked about how... a lot of people were mad how like so many things, especially from that first trailer, weren't in the film.
Yeah, it's like...
And the trailer used like the monologue from Saw Gerrera talking about like when you're at your lowest, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then it ends with like, what will you become? And it used this shot of like her turning around like this like dark chamber turning on. And people were like, is she gonna like turn evil? Like it's like this, they're playing this scene is playing with like light and dark. Like is she ambiguous? Like what's gonna happen? They literally just shot it because they thought it looked cool. And they didn't even end up using it. The highly ranked Imperial officer Tarkin was designated in Star Wars promotional materials as Grand Moff Tarkin and occasionally Admiral Tarkin. But in the original film, he was named only as Governor Tarkin. He was called that by Princess Leia when she was brought to his presence. In this film, he is again referred to as Governor Tarkin. The title Moff has never been spoken in Star Wars live-action movies, except for a deleted scene in Solo, a Star Wars story. Printed sources beginning in the late 80s gave Tarkin the first name Wilhuff, which has also never been spoken on film.
I
think a Moff is just like
what you just said, but I did catch that they said governor, and I thought that was weird.
I think Grand Moff...
I thought he was admiral.
What does Grand Moff mean?
Well, then there's Moff Miffy.
Grand Moff,
Moff,
according to Wikipedia, Grand Moff was a military and political title in the hierarchy of the Galactic Empire. Grand Moffs were governors of over-sectors. So I think it's like you have like a sector and then like a mega sector.
Yeah.
So it's like he's almost like an ultra governor. He's like the governor of the governors. He's the Grand Moff.
So admiral.
So a Moff is a political rank held by the governors of each sector.
And that's why the Moth lady is a Moff.
No, that's Mon Mothma.
Oh.
That's TH.
I thought you were saying Moff.
I saw Grand Moff, but her name isn't Moff. It's
I thought you were saying
No.
Okay.
You fool. No, you didn't read the subtitles?
I didn't see any of her subtitles.
Oh, okay. Nearly none of the footage and dialogue in Rogue One's original reveal trailer made it to the final theatrical cut is theorized this was caused by the film's extensive reshoots. Right? In one scene on Yavin 4, an announcer can be heard calling out to a General Syndulla. This is a reference to Hera Syndulla of Star Wars Rebels, the Green Lady. That from Rebels that we watched.
Yes, yes. I did hear that, and then I also saw the little hologram of the dancing lady.
I don't think that's her.
No, I'm just saying, like, little things that are in there.
Little blue milk.
Yes, there was some blue milk. Yes, I'm starting to catch
shot,
on.
like where it just like lingers on the blue milk because they want the audience to be like, "Yo, it's the blue milk!"
Oh, what was it that where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I know that!" Where it's like people were.
Oh, I forget. Maybe something.
Oh,
funny.
it was something in town, but it was. I'm starting to pick up.
Starting to pick up on all the little fan services.
I'm like, aha.
There is mention of a secret Imperial technology used by the First Order in the next movie, Episode 8. As Jyn looks for the Death Star plans in the Scarab Vault, she sees a topic named hyperspace tracking. This is the technology that enables the First Order to chase the Resistance fleet even as they travel through hyperspace. I guess it's like a little Easter egg for a film that hadn't come out yet. Interesting. Composer Alexandra Desplat's original score was rejected because of the extensive reshoots to address the tone and story issues. So he basically scored the movie.
Wow.
And then they had to reshoot, so you can't just like use the same score because it's like set to the movie.
Well, like, what was wrong with it?
I have no idea. This extended the post-production schedule for which he was unavailable due to his commitments to Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, which was a film that came out like a year later. Michael Giacchino, his replacement, only had 1 month to write his musical score.
Oh my.
Like we talked about. I'm going to skip this one because we already talked about it. Because much of the film was shot at Pinewood Studios near Wembley, where Riz Ahmed grew up, Riz spent most of the shoot living at his parents' house.
Aw.
That's kind of cute. Because he wasn't a huge person yet.
Mm-hmm.
He had been like in, I think, Nightcrawler.
Oh, he
that
was
Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
That? I don't know.
He's like his driver.
Okay.
Or he gives him like the Jeep, his little assistant guy. The character named Jyn Erso is thought to be a reference to Jan Ors, a character in the video game Star Wars Dark Forces. In the first mission of the game, Ors and Kyle Katarn recover the plans to the Death Star. But of course, that's the old canon.
I'm sorry. I know it's a little thing. I know it doesn't matter, but I think just for ease purposes, things should be different. And I don't like that her name is Jyn because of Qui-Gon Jinn. So I already got a Jinn in my mind. So I need something else.
It's spelled different.
I'm not looking at how it's spelled. I'm hearing it. So if what's that girl's name? Ray, that's different.
What's that girl's name?
I don't know. What if it was something?
Do you remember? You say you have these names in your head. I'm starting to think you don't have any names in your head.
I know. Why would I remember these things?
Because we're doing a show about it?
No, I'm just saying.
Maybe make a little effort?
No, I remember them. I just I don't. There's so much Star Wars lore. It's a lot.
And this is barely even scratching the surface.
What?
Yeah, there's like hundreds of books and things like
What?
The giant laser dish is the last part added to the original Death Star to make it complete. The second Death Star in Return of the Jedi has its laser dish already attached and fully operational, even when the station's superstructure was still incomplete. So I guess they built the second one in a different order.
Look like a satellite dish.
In very early stage, can we get HBO on this from this thing? In very early stages of production, Jyn Erso was a sergeant. Even though it was later cut from the movie, several action figures still refer to her as Sergeant Jyn Erso. This was because the change was made after the action figures had already been produced. However, the movie's novelization confirms that Jyn has been given the rank of sergeant by Lieutenant Taidu Sefla.
Oh, Star Wars. Disney.
They always have to come up with a reason. The Ghost, which is the Rebel spaceship from Star Wars Rebels, is seen in the Battle of Scarif, like in the background of all the ships. Other titles when the film was in production included Rise of the Empire, Shadow of the Death Star, and Dark Times. The title Rogue One was finally settled on when they decided it's not part of the Skywalker, so it's the Rogue One.
Yeah, I got it. Dark Times. Gonna make it.
That's Hard Times. The call sign that Bodhi Rook, who's Riz Ahmed, gives for the stolen Imperial ship is SW0608. SW are the initials of Star Wars. There are 6 main members of the Rogue One team: Jyn Erso, Cassian Andor, Bodhi Rook, K2SO, Chirrut Imwe, and Baze Malbus. And this is the 8th official live-action Star Wars film to be released.
I thought that whole thing was stupid.
I thought that whole thing was stupid.
Because it's not a requirement, right? It's just like a thing that people do, saying the title, right? No,
we're talking about not when he says Rogue One.
I know.
We're talking about he needs to identify himself as an Imperial ship.
No, I know. But I'm saying in the other part, he says the name of the movie, and that happens often in movies, right? But that's not like something you have to do.
No.
Right?
No.
So this
There's
one,
no rule.
this one was very much stuffed in a very.
Never in Star Wars do they say the phrase Star Wars.
This was just a very strange and awkward, like, Rogue One. We are the Rogue One movie. We are the one Rogue.
Yep. Darth Vader is first shown living in a castle-like fortress that appears to be built on an active volcano. This is based on unused concept art created by Ralph McQuarrie after Episode 4 was filmed, but before the plot of The Empire Strikes Back was developed. This one's kind of semi-sad. Carrie Fisher, the original Princess Leia, passed away over a week after the film's cinema release in the United States.
Oh.
She was able to see the film before her death and reportedly squealed with joy at seeing the younger version of herself at the end of the movie. Right? So it is kind of fitting that like the last like the very last thing we see is Princess Leia, and then like a week later Carrie Fisher died.
Oh.
And so it was like on people's minds, and then it was really sad and stuff.
Oh.
The name Rogue Squadron, the group of pilots led by Luke Skywalker at the Battle of Hoth, is retroactively revealed to be inspired by Jim's team, which chose the name Rogue One as its call sign. During the original trilogy, the call sign Rogue One is never used. Due to the tragic events of this movie, it can be assumed that the call sign has been retired out of respect for the heroes.
How would they even know about it? All the people who on the planet died.
But they know they were Rogue One.
Oh, yeah.
The people in space. All the other people.
Look, the fish people.
The fish people. The Mon Calamari people.
They're funny.
The Battle of Scarif helps to explain why the Rebel Alliance was only able to muster about 30 starfighters to attack the Death Star, and why they would let Luke, a pilot with no experience in X-Wings, join the attack. The battle severely depletes the Rebel Starfighter Corps, and its leader, General Merrick, is killed in action. Luke is recruited to replace Red 5, who was also killed at Scarif. The battle also adds weight to Luke's admonition to Han that the Rebels, quote, could use a good pilot like you, you're turning your back on them, end quote. So that's kind of interesting, I suppose. So they already have a small force, and then they lose a bunch of it at this battle.
Okay.
Right. In Star Wars, the original film, Governor Tarkin announces that the Emperor has dissolved the council permanently and that all territories are directly controlled by regional governors. Although the reason for this decision was never explicitly stated, it is likely that the Emperor did this in direct response to the Battle of Scarif, which occurs at the end of this movie. As this was the first open assault of the Rebel Alliance on the Empire, he probably used it as an excuse to implement some form of martial law throughout the galaxy and rid himself of the last governmental body that stood between himself and absolute power. That's interesting. I wish they explored it.
Yeah.
And finally, so I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, and others. I'm so fucking tired. This is the only Star Wars movie, and I'm very thirsty, actually, too.
Do you want some water?
Oh, yes, please. Can I drink water out of your very trendy mason jar?
I'm drinking out of mason jars.
Just to moisten up my vocal cords. I'm talking so much. This is the only Star Wars movie to present the media effects on the ground of the firing of the Death Star superweapon, as opposed to viewing the destruction from space or its aftermath, such as there being no Alderaan, just a debris field as seen in the original film. That's kind of cool. That's new. It's like a nuclear bomb goes off, basically.
Yeah, that I don't know. I didn't really
Would you say it was strange?
It was strange because it seemed too much, right? Because in Star Wars, right, we see people's arms get chopped off, whatever, but there's never a nuclear explosion of an entire planet that we can visually see. So it just seems a little too doomsday for a Star Wars film, but okay. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like the thing with Joker. It's like the what is it called?
You don't expect that in Star Wars.
Yeah, it just it just seemed like going a little too far.
Well, how's this for going too far? The critical reception was very positive.
Yeah.
At the time, he got very good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It has an 84%.
Wow.
And the critical consensus is, quote, Rogue One draws deep on Star Wars mythology, does it? While breaking new narrative and aesthetic ground, does it? And suggesting a bright blockbuster future for the franchise. Does it? IGN reviewer Eric Goldman gave the film a 9 out of 10, describing Rogue One's storytelling being related to the plot of the original Star Wars as a, quote, tricky gambit, end quote, but praised it for being clear and connected. He also enjoyed the visual aesthetic, which he opined, that's a very journalistic word, opined, helped establish its own identity, and praised the performances of Jones, Luna, and Tudyk. Alan Tudyk plays K2SO, does the voices. However, he disliked the film's connection to other Star Wars films, disliking the use of digital effects to recreate a character from the original trilogy, deeming it as, quote, uncanny valley, end quote.
It did look creepy at times.
He looks creepier now. It was much more impressive 10 years ago, as it obviously would be. Right?
It looked like his face was melting or something. It was weird.
Yeah, he's made of
when he
clay or
moved.
Something.
Yeah.
Sorry. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone affirmed the film as being reminiscent of the original trilogy and enjoyed Edwards' direction and the pacing. What? He especially enjoyed Jones's performance in the action sequences. Jones is in Felicity Jones, not James Earl.
Yes.
And he enjoyed the action sequences in the third act, although he felt the film's exposition slightly undermined character interactions. Travers went on to give the film 4 stars.
I was thinking Indiana.
No!
But yes, Felicity Jones.
Slash Film rated Rogue One an 8 out of 10, with writer Peter Serretta enjoying the darker tone, action sequences, Giacchino's score, and felt it retroactively improved Star Wars by providing additional context and backstory. No, it completely ruined the context and backstory. Serretta wished the film focused on further characterization, which he felt was neglected due to the ensemble cast and runtime.
Yes.
Justin Chang, writing for the Los Angeles Times, praised Fraser's cinematography. Why? And also enjoyed the action sequences, feeling its storytelling would, quote, immediately ascend to classic status, end quote, and justified its existence. He particularly emphasized the cast and commended the performance of Yen, Luna, and Jones, Donnie Yen. He defended the ensemble cast from criticism by contending it highlighted the film's anti-fascist themes. Chang also speculated that the film had faster pacing due to wanting to avoid criticisms of slow pacing from the prequel trilogy.
A movie is not good just because there's a cool ninja dude.
It helps.
It does help.
It helps.
He is really cool. And it's cool. He's blind. He's just got to rely on the Force, Yeah. But that doesn't, it's a good thing in a bad movie. Stop doing that.
Peter Bradshaw, there's a lot of Peter film critics. Peter Travers, Peter Soretta, Peter Bradshaw, Peter Mancuso. There's a lot of us. Peter Bradshaw, film critic for The Guardian, giving a 4-star rating, enjoyed the film for providing, quote, muscular and adroit variations on familiar Star Wars elements and themes in addition to the depiction of the Death Star. He also offered general praise for cast performances, including that of Mickelson and Mendelsohn, Jones, Tudyk, Yen, and Luna, but felt the film did not, quote, go rogue at any stage, end quote, and considered it to be released during the cultural zeitgeist of The Force Awakens. I feel like this movie only makes $1 billion because it's coming out a year after The Force Awakens and everyone's just still hyped. In a more critical review, finally, the Washington Post's Anne Hornaday, she's horny every day, regarded the film as being simplistic and a quote-unquote placeholder, compared its imagery to Mad Max Fury Road and Arrival. She positively regarded the visual aesthetic, Giacchino's score, and darker tone, but thought the plot was unoriginal and lacked the tone of previous Star Wars films. However, she regarded the film as superior to the prequel trilogy. That's preposterous. Even Attack of the Clones is better than this movie.
I think she's saying the look.
I don't care what she's saying. I'm not gonna listen to a woman who's horny every day.
No.
Similarly, giving a C+ grade, IndieWire's David Ehrlich similarly regarded it as a, quote, spirited but as an agonizingly safe attempt to keep the wheels greased between proper installments, end quote. However, he lauded the opening scene and final act, saying the latter reminded him of Star Wars, quote, as we remembered it, end quote, and praised the set design and visuals as, quote unquote, gorgeous. He also enjoyed how the film reconciled narrative elements between the original and newer Star Wars films, but felt the lack of interesting character development and requirement to adhere to pre-existing narratives was to a detriment.
Yes.
A.O. Scott and Richard Brody, ranked for the New York Times and the New Yorker respectively, more heavily scrutinized the film and gave negative reviews. Both felt that it did not expand upon the Star Wars mythos, criticized the script, and considered the film to ultimately not justify its existence. Scott regarded the film as being, quote-unquote, mediocre, and primarily critiqued the plot and thematic content, which he believed to be underdeveloped. Meanwhile, Brody, who went on to call it, quote, lobotomized and depersonalized, end quote, felt Edwards overlooked many aspects of Star Wars lore. However, Brody positively regarded Fraser's cinematography and considered it his favorite element of the film, but was not affected by the depth of major characters as he was not emotionally invested in their story. So
exactly. Because, like, the whole team fucking dies, and you get to the beach and you're like, oh yeah, you're like, where are the other guys? And you're like,
oh yeah, they died.
Oh yeah, I guess they died.
I don't care. So despite some detractors, the movie had pretty positive reception, and the reception is still seemingly positive. So on Letterboxd has a 3.73 out of 5. Right, so still very, very positive.
Yes.
I found some reviews as I'm wont to do. I'd like to read for you now, if that's all right. Marion writes, the first half of this movie is 3 stars, but the last half hour is about 8 stars. So jot that down. And it goes to show how, like, even people who like this movie, like, understand that it's, like, very uneven.
Yeah.
Right? Comrade Yui says, quote, Comrade_Yui says, quote, the fact this is considered the good one out of all the recent Disney Star Wars entries is a damning indictment of how low the standards for these films really are. Yep. Casey Malone writes, I love the ending of this movie, but still don't see how they're going to make Rogue 2. Do you get the joke?
That they're going to be Rogue?
No, it's just Rogue 2 as in like the number 2. Like This is Rogue 1, so a sequel would be Rogue 2.
Yeah. Well, they don't. It's A New Hope.
What? The person's just making a joke about how there's a number in the title. Yeah. So that would imply, it'd be like saying 7 Samurai. Oh, is the sequel going to be 8 Samurai?
Well, it's because it didn't.
I knew when I wrote this, I was like, she's not going to get this joke. She's going to go, huh?
Well, it's because it's not said the way that they are intending it to be said. They're saying like Rogue One. Like there should be there should be an article there. They're like the Rogue One. But people just say Rogue One.
Because that's the call sign, like Red 5.
Yeah, but they're not. No one says it as like Rogue One. Do you see what I'm saying?
Favorite part: scene, character, actor, line. If you had, do you have a favorite part of this movie?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess
You like the little alien guy, the little one.
yes, the little alien guy.
He was like, nah!
He's so small but mighty.
He's small and mighty, exactly.
I guess like the characters.
What?
No, I mean like the aliens. Well, I like that alien guy and also the fish people. But
Of course. They have such big chubby faces.
yes, and sometimes when they have like a little goatee, it, like jiggles like a
Yeah, exactly. Like the
like
jowl
a gizzard.
kind of. Yeah.
I liked Galen, but I also liked Critic. I think I liked Critic. Krennic. I like
Critic.
I like Krennic more.
Are you a critic of Krennic?
I liked Krennic, and then also, you know, obviously the blind master
Kung Fu Man.
Kung Fu Man. Yes.
Okay.
Is it Kung Fu or martial arts or
I don't know.
karate?
Karate. I think my favorite part of this movie is I'm gonna be a dumb Star Wars fan and just I like watching Darth Vader slice those guys in the hallway.
He did it very coolly.
It was very cool. Like it was effortless.
Yes, it was very effortless. Oh, and I also liked seeing the AT-ATs, although they were nowhere there, so it was a little random because there was just water, so it's not like they were over somewhere. It just seemed a little out of place, if you understand what I'm saying. But you know, I like looking at them. I'm like, hello.
It reminded me of this Darth Vader comic that I can't remember if this came out before or after this movie came out. Mm-hmm. But it's like it's of the Disney Star Wars era of like he's fighting these rebels and he's like surrounded by like hundreds of rebels and they're like surrender, you're surrounded, and he says this awesome line I'm pulling up here. He says, "All I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men." Ooh. Like, and that's kind of how this scene feels, where it's just like,
bro,
like when they're like the rebels like are looking into the darkness, and then they see like the red lightsaber, like all of them know they're not gonna make it out. Like their goal is not to survive. Their goal is to stall him so they can get the plans out.
Ugh, you know what?
Like they know they're not gonna live.
Oh my god!
Like remember that one guy? He has to like stick his arm. Yes. He's like, take it.
Ugh, you know what? You do all this, you get through this log, you do all this stuff, and you're not even done. We just got it to Leia. Then we got the whole Leia.
Yeah, that's just the beginning.
Oh my god!
This is just so they have a chance.
I'm just tired just watching this. And all we did was get the little disc. And also,
a little floppy disk.
And also, it's very strange that he kept using Stardust, and I was like, why does he keep saying this? This is not a. Her name is very short. There's no need for a nickname.
You made her nickname longer.
Yeah, but then apparently it was like helpful.
It ended up being helpful, yeah. Okay, Viviana, 1 to 10. What are you giving Rogue One?
I'm giving it a 5.
A 5. Okay. Explain yourself. Actually, we've already spent time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have only given one movie a 5, the Ewok Adventure, which is like the first one. The first Ewok movie. Do you like this one more or less than that?
Is that the one with the family? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Before her family gets murdered.
Yeah. Yes, of course. But okay, it's Friday night and I'm gonna watch a movie.
I would think you'd rather watch the Ewok one because at least it's kind of cute and funny.
Yeah.
And shorter, mercifully shorter. This is like over 2 hours long.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. It just seems not right, but also it is.
It's so wrong and yet it feels so right. I'm giving this movie a 4. It's actively bad. It is a 5 to me is mediocre. Mm-hmm. This would be mediocre if it wasn't so hacked up. Mm. It transcends just being mediocre. It's somehow fecklessly bad. Mm-hmm. Like, because at least usually bad movies are interesting and like, but it can't even say that. It just pisses me off. I I don't know if it's just because I'm tired, unrelatedly, but I am so pissed. Like, remember how you were pissed off before we started recording?
Yes.
I'm, like, pissed off now. Like, I'm tired. I'm grumpy. Like, my whole afternoon is gone now. We talking about this. So I'm giving it a 4. The only other movie I've given a 4 is the holiday special. So the question is, which do I like more?
I think you like the holiday special one. Because...
No.
I don't know.
I think I'm going to keep holiday special at the very bottom.
Okay.
And the reason why is because this one at least has glimmers of, like, potential and goodness. Whereas the holiday special is, like, again, we laugh at how ridiculous it is, but the holiday special's biggest crime is just, it's boring. It's just, like...
Well, I guess not entertaining, but...
It's just not entertaining. It's just, like...
Entertaining in a non-entertaining way.
It's, like, so bad it's good.
Things that we quote.
It's a bigger swing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ew, stop it!
We are... I love the second... Oh, she does. She goes, oh. We are excited.
Well, no, what got me was that this is the movie, right? And I was like, okay. And then there was still another hour left. I was like...
You know, I think...
I literally busted out laughing. I was like, are you fucking serious?
I think if you make a movie and people are doing a podcast about your movie and they would rather talk about the Star Wars holiday special, I think that even if the holiday special is worse, I think that is the biggest indictment
because you can remember more of the holiday special. I don't even know what happened in this movie.
They had the Jefferson Starship band, like the hologram band playing.
They just like
the porn, the cooking show.
Itchy.
The cooking show, remember with the lady? She's like, whisk, spin, whisk.
Oh my goodness. You know, there's more to remember, but, you know, I want to remember this, but all I can remember is the Sandals Beach.
That's it for this week's episode. Feels like it's been
where are Sandals
Now
Beaches?
That's what I call, I think the Caribbean somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Now that's what I call a franchise. Next week, we'll be watching the next film in the franchise, the 2017 film, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Viviana, where can they find us?
Oh my gosh, the last one. Low supply. You guys can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Franchise Podcast.
And if you have the time, leave a rating for us on Apple Podcasts, because apparently that helps.
And
commend you.
Oh my god! And if you have even more time, leave us a review too.
We know you have many podcasting options, and we thank you for choosing us. Peace out, guys.
Later, gators.